Basketball is just a game, they said. At least that was what I thought. Being in my high school basketball team has been a dream I've had for as far as when I made my first hoop. I grew to love the game when I was in middle school. Watching the highlights of the great Chicago Bulls was how I always ended my day. I was usually up till midnight watching clips of Michael Jordan. This had a great impact on my game at a young age to the extent that I started sticking my tongue out when going for a layup like Michael Jordan did. I had a friend, Daniel, and like me, he was a big fan of basketball. Daniel and I have been friends since we were in kindergarten. It's safe to say we started our schooling journey together. We became closer as we grew older. Since then, we became brothers, basically. We did basically everything together from talent shows to parties. You name it. We enjoyed each other's company, and it made us inseparable. My parents were well aware of Daniel because we were usually at one another's house after school. We both had a garage with a basketball board and net. His house basically felt like home to me. I'm always stating the fact that I'm a bit envious of his height. I was not as tall as he was. He also always stated the fact that he was taller than I am. We were not geniuses in school, but we did not fail classes. We took the same classes. Yes, we were that close. I usually tried my best not to get in fights. But Daniel was the arrogant type EE. He never lets anything slide. Even though he'll always get beat up and I'll have to save his ass, he never backs down from a fight. I nicknamed him the Big Baby because even with his large body frame, he still fusses when the slightest happens to him. This particular day, we went to try the public basketball court, or as they call it, playground. This is where the best players come to have fun. We were considered rookies. They called us new blood after only seeing us for the first time. The fun fact is that I played very well and Daniel not so much. I noticed his coldness towards me on our way home, but I'm fond of Daniel. I didn't take it as anything. Our friendship seemed to be deteriorating, but something always brought us together. Basketball. It was no mystery that I was a better player than Daniel, well, at least a better shooter of the ball. Daniel was a more physical player compared to me. Making it to our local middle school team was not a problem for us, DU. We were the best players on the team. We basically carried the team. Our chemistry was on a different level, especially when we were in the zone. It felt like nothing was real because we made it look so easy. Daniel was more of a player that drove into the paint due to his height, making layups cheap for him, He was the tallest on the team. He had physicality while I had better skill. We complement each other in every way. His favorite player was Dennis Rodman. It was safe to say that they played alike. He was like Dennis in a lot of ways with his play style and attitude. Daniel was the kind of guy that did not care about what other people thought. He only seemed to care about what he thought of the situation. The end of middle school was approaching, and we've always had the dream of going to Molineux High. Our grades were okay, so it was feasible. Molineux High had one of the best basketball programs in the state. That was what attracted us the most. We've gone to games where Molineux played, and I could say for a fact they are almost college basketball standards. Yes, they are that good. I knew high school was going to be a very different experience compared to the small corners of middle school, so I got myself prepared for what was to come. Daniel and I usually had conversations about how high school was going to be LE. We always ended up concluding that we'll cross that bridge in due time. Middle school graduation drew closer. The anxiety I felt grew. It was happening so fast. Daniel and I applied to attend Molineux. Lucky for us, we both got accepted into the school. We were filled with joy. My parents were also happy because they knew how much going to the school meant to me. It was a dream come true, at least part of my dreams. I've always wanted to be a starting point guard. The preceding point guards for the school have all gone on to play college basketball. Some even made it into the NBA, so it was a big deal. The night before my first day was different. I could barely sleep. I was filled with excitement and anxiety at the same time, thinking about how this new experience will be. My mom noticed how uneasy I was. She knocked on the door and talked to me. She said, "Don't worry, I know how you feel. We've all felt this way before." I somehow found those words comforting. I had a bit of sleep. I woke up to grab the day by its horns. I ate breakfast and got in my mom's car. She drove me to school. Before my eyes, a new chapter of my life was opened. Still nervous, I walked down the hallway looking at the cool boys and girls wanting to have that kind of confidence, and then came Daniel. At that time, he was my knight in shining armor. We ran towards each other looking absolutely lost. There was light at the end of the tunnel after all. I almost forgot Daniel and I were in this together. Seeing a familiar face made it bearable. Weeks went by and I was starting to settle into the high school system. Daniel and I were not taking the same classes like we were in middle school. We still hung out after school. I usually waited for him at the entrance of the cafeteria. Tides changed when Daniel started coming late to where we met and I started noticing we didn't hang out as much. Was our friendship coming to its end? I asked myself, what will I do without him? I asked myself again. Some days Daniel didn't show up where we usually met EA. He usually apologizes, but sometimes your words might say something and your actions something different. I noticed he started moving with the school bullies clique. Because of his big body frame, it was easy for him to fit into their category. I felt the slow deterioration of our long friendship. The funny part is that he always comes back to me after he has an argument with his new friends. Daniel kept assuring me that it was not what I thought it was, that the guys just have a bad reputation. My naive self decided to believe what he said, deciding not to judge a book by its cover. Shortly after, my relationship with Daniel went through a radical change after I found heroin in his locker. We both had keys to our respective lockers, being best friends and all. The very day I found the heroin in his locker, I decided to confront Daniel. I can say for a fact that the confrontation did not go well. Having yelled at me, he collected the key he gave me to his locker and we broke our friendship off. It felt so sudden to me, though he had been drifting away for a while now. I started feeling a new form of loneliness I've never felt before. My parents, especially my mum, were worried that she had me speak to a therapist. I always said I'm okay to avoid further explanation, and I knew very much that I wasn't. This situation led to me doing badly in class because Daniel and I had always been study buddies, as I like to call it. Everything felt new to me. It felt like I've been in a protective bubble for a long while, and all of a sudden it popped. Weeks went by and I started picking myself up. I will always run into Daniel in the hallway, but we won't say a word to each other. I started seeing life in high school in a different way. I started taking after-school tutorials because I was lagging behind, having to juggle basketball, school, and the situation with Daniel. I started feeling good a very long while when the basketball tryouts began. I knew it was inevitable not to meet Daniel at the tryouts. I was prepared to compete with anyone, even Daniel. As the days drew nearer, I put myself through intense drills just to be fit for the tryouts. The coach of the basketball team, Mr. Carter, was a very disciplined man and a strict coach. He was known for putting his players through the hardest drills. During my personal preparation, I felt closer to myself than ever. There was something brewing up inside me. I became stronger both physically and mentally. I didn't want anything to get in the way of achieving my goal. I was laser-focused on making the team. I knew I had to prepare more than anyone else because I wanted to be the best. I always want to be the best at what I do. I've always had the policy of being the best at whatever I do. There were 3 phases to the tryouts. Little did I know that the ranking was made public. I saw the list of the players that applied for the tryouts, and there it was right under my name was Daniel's. Unbelievable, I said to myself. This means we'll be seeing a lot of each other on the court. I prepared myself for something like this. It felt like the universe had something to do with it, because out of the 49 other applicants, it just had to be Daniel. I was in for a ride. The tryouts began with endurance tests. As I expected, Daniel excelled much at that. I also spent the last month building my body and my endurance. Daniel came first in that phase like I expected. I came second, having pushed myself to the limit. I was not surprised. I trained myself for that. I saw the surprise in Daniel's eyes. He knew that used to be the weakest aspect of my game. Coach Carter started noticing me. I got his nod of approval after the first phase. The second phase involved shooting drills. I was excited for this because this was where I took pride in. I held the scoring record for my middle school. I'm sure Daniel knew what to expect, and I can say for a fact I was the best at shooting on the court. Having made 75% of my shots, I was ranked first in the phase. The current point guard walked up to me and asked me where I learned to shoot like that. I replied practice E with a light smile on his face. He said, "Well done." I got the nod from the coach again. I realized the coach was taking a liking to me. I was filled with excitement. I'm afraid I couldn't say that about Daniel. He came fourth in that round. Shooting was never his best attribute. We were told to go home and get rested for the final phase. I hurriedly took my bath and left the gym for my home. I got home and told my mom how the day went. She was so excited. I was sure it's not because of what I was telling her, but because she could see me smile so genuinely again. I was so excited for the next day because I knew it was going to be packed with fun. I woke up sore from the training, but I felt more energetic than ever. A great day awaits. I said to myself, upon arriving in school, little did I know that I became popular amongst the freshmen. I kept getting nods from my classmates and some of the seniors. Maybe high school isn't so bad after all. I had 3 classes that day before the final phase of the tryouts. As one of the 3 classes was history, which I took with Daniel. Our seats were not far from each other. Upon entering the class, I could feel the strong gaze from Daniel. We stared at each other for about 5 seconds before I took my seat. This is war, I whispered to myself silently. There was every possibility we could make the team together because we played different positions, but I decided to look at my problem at hand and not worry about that. I anticipated the end of the class so I could get changed and go to the gym for the final phase of the tryouts. The sound of the bell was music to my ears. I left the class with excitement, waiting to see what awaits me at the gym. I arrived at the gym. Daniel was already there. The coach welcomed me and said only the top 10 are left on the court. I was surprised. A lot of people have been cut in a very short time. Coach Carter is a very adventurous man. He told us we were going to play in a team of 5. I had no idea what the final phase was. I sighed in disgust because I knew what was coming. I knew I either played with Daniel or I played against Daniel. Either way, we had to cross paths on the court. The coach rolled up 10 pieces of paper and told all of us to pick from it. I dipped my hand in the bowl and expected what I picked. Yes, I was on his team. A dark cloud was hovering over such a good day. I had no choice but to oblige with the coach, even if it meant speaking to Daniel. I was not comfortable, but I loved basketball compared to a mere beef with my ex-friend. I rallied the team and told them to play like it's an actual competitive game. We had to win the game in order to be selected. I was nervous. This was the game of my life up until now. We started on the front foot mostly thanks to me. I made 4 3-point shots, giving us a 5-point lead. Then came the twist in the tail, as I expected. Daniel wanted to be the starting man. He kept holding the ball, trying to make points for himself. He made some, but most times, he turned the ball over to the opponent, leading to points made by the opponent. I was filled with rage. I walked up to him and told him to play a team game. I told him we won't win if he keeps playing like this. You are not the coach. I. We replied. I walked away with fury. We won the game, luckily. Coach Carter congratulated us personally. He walked up to me and said, "Welcome to the team." This was a dream come true for me. Then I remembered I had to be on the team with Daniel. I felt a short wave of rage. I packed my bags and went home. I got to school the next day, getting even more popular for making the team as a freshman. I had to get back to academic reality. I was failing some classes. I had to take an extra tutorial, making me leave the school as late as 8 p.m. I usually get home tired and exhausted. One disastrous night, I saw Daniel walk up to me in the middle of an alley, saying to me, "You have nowhere to run." I told him to leave me alone, that I was not ready for his little stunt. After that, I walked past him. His store there, I saw his group of bully friends. I tried to run, but both entrances were blocked. I got beat so badly that I had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. I was so lucky I didn't get a bone fracture, but I had to wear a cast on my arm for 3 weeks. My mom kept asking me if I saw anything that happened. I kept telling her it happened so fast that I couldn't see anything. She knew I was lying, and yes, I was lying. I wanted to take matters into my hands. I was so furious that I kept plotting and thinking of how I could get back at Daniel. Then it struck me that I found heroin in his locker. I knew he was using heroin. Having known Daniel for so long, I knew where he would go and take something like that. I knew he couldn't do it during school hours. I knew it would be after school. I made that my plan the first day I got back to school. I had no idea jealousy could make Daniel so toxic. We both made the team. I asked myself, what could make him jealous? I asked DU. Then I remembered I outperformed him in the 3rd phase of the tryouts. That was not enough reason to beat me up. When I went back to school, I was welcomed warmly by my teammates and classmates. I patiently waited for the day to end. I had a plan. I inconspicuously trailed Daniel to where he met with his friends. I was so surprised with what I saw. I was piping the wooden window. It was Daniel using steroids. I looked in disbelief. I reached for my pocket quickly and brought out my cell phone to record what I just saw. I took a video and sent it to Coach Carter and the entire class SI. I made sure to send the video from an unknown number, making it untraceable back to me. I saw Daniel's life take a very bad turn. He got kicked off the basketball team. He then got expelled from school after board review. I felt bad for him at some point, but anytime I remember I was badly beaten, I always come to a conclusion that he deserved what came to him. I went on to make my home debut. I came off the bench and scored 25 points and made 7 assists, setting the record for the most point contribution made by a freshman.